On Christmas Eve, I saw the framed family portrait, my face cropped out completely. No one mentioned it. The next day, I handed my parents an envelope and said, "Don't open it here." They did anyway. My mom started crying. My dad went pale. My mom started crying. My dad went pale. I wish I could say I was shocked when I saw it. I wish I could tell you it came as a complete surprise like some dramatic twist at the end of a movie. But honestly, it felt weirdly expected. I walked into my parents' living room, dusted the snow off my boots, looked up, and there it was. The photo. Large. Glossy. Professionally framed. Hung with intention and pride just above the fireplace like it was the crown jewel of our family's legacy. Everyone was in it. My mom in her favorite red blazer, smiling like she hadn't just spent decades sighing at everything that didn't involve my sister. My dad doing that awkward grin he only seems to pull out for photos and golf course selfies. And my sister, of course, front and center wearing some beige turtleneck that probably cost more than my rent. With that fake candid pose she does where it looks like she's laughing at something charming and wholesome. Maybe a joke about her trust fund. And then there was no me. Not even shoved to the edge. Not even blurred in the background. Just gone. It wasn't a bad crop. It was a clean one. Intentional tidy. Like I'd been photoshopped out of their lives as smoothly as possible. No smudges, no rough edges. Just deleted. I stared at it for maybe 4 seconds. 5 tops. Long enough for my stomach to knot but not long enough for anyone to notice. Or maybe they did notice and just didn't care. Dinner's almost ready. Mom called from the kitchen like we were all one big happy family. I could smell rosemary and lemon from whatever she was roasting. Holiday smells. Comfort smells. I used to love those smells, back when they still meant something. I hung up my coat, muttered a quick hello and stepped into the kitchen. My sister was there, of course, swirling wine in a glass like she was hosting a segment on seasonal pairings. She kissed my cheek in that air kiss way she does now, just close enough for the gesture to register just far enough to avoid touching me. "You made it," she said like this was her house and I was late to an event. I didn't bother replying. Just smiled. The kind of smile you give when you've already screamed into a pillow 3 times this month and decided it wasn't worth wasting your voice. Dinner was the usual performance. My dad carved the roast like he was auditioning for a Hallmark commercial. My mom complimented my sister's skincare routine. Twice. No one asked how I was. No one asked what I'd been doing or where I was living now. The only question I got was whether I still drove that little car, which is code for, "We have no idea what's going on in your life and we're hoping you'll fill in the blanks so we can pretend we care." I didn't fill in the blanks. Instead, I watched my sister unwrap a small something from Mom and Dad. A vintage gold watch. "Nothing fancy," Mom insisted, which is hilarious because the receipt was still folded under the tissue paper and I caught the number. Let's just say I'd have to work a week and a half to afford it, and that's assuming I skipped groceries. "Oh my God, you guys," my sister beamed. "This is just wow. Thought you'd like it," Dad said, grinning like he just secured a merger. Meanwhile, I got a mug that said somebody's favorite daughter, which I'm sure was meant to be ironic. Or was it? Hard to say. I excused myself after dessert, said I was tired. Mom offered me the guest room. Not my room. Not your old room. Just the guest room. Beige sheets, dusty bookshelf, one lamp that flickered if you breathed too close to it. I shut the door behind me, turned on the lamp which flickered on cue and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I pulled out the envelope. It had been sitting in my bag the whole time. Thick ivory paper. Embossed seal. I'd thought about giving it to them in the morning. After the stockings, after the cinnamon rolls, after the performance. But standing in that living room looking at that photo, seeing my entire existence airbrushed out like a glitch in the family algorithm, yeah. I changed my mind. They didn't just forget me. They erased me carefully, strategically, like I'd been a bad brand partnership. I turned the envelope over in my hands. It felt heavy. That night, I lay in bed and let the house settle around me. Same creaky floorboards, same ticking wall clock. Somewhere in the hall my dad was snoring. My mom's voice drifted up once. Something about bringing the good plates tomorrow. My sister laughed in that practiced breathy way of hers. The Golden Child soundtrack. I closed my eyes and thought about the years. The time I got into my dream college and they said, "We're so proud," before immediately asking if I could defer a year so they could help my sister with her portfolio. The time I missed rent and called home and Dad said, "Things are tight right now," while planning a cruise for her birthday. The time I brought home a boyfriend and they forgot his name at dinner. He never came back. I didn't blame him. I was tired of telling myself I was just sensitive. Tired of pretending I misunderstood. That night, lying in a bed that was supposed to feel familiar but didn't, I stopped making excuses. Tomorrow I would give them the envelope. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't even raise my voice. I'd just smile, say Merry Christmas, and watch the truth do what years of silence never could. I woke up to the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls and the faint sound of my sister's voice saying something about luggage weight limits and how stressful travel is honestly. The irony, of course, being that she wasn't the one paying for her travel, or her luggage, or the suitcase, or the shoes inside the suitcase that cost more than my monthly rent. But yes, devastating stuff. Purrs up. I stayed in the guest room a little longer than necessary. Not because I was still tired, but because I wasn't in the mood to walk back into the sitcom set that was my family's idea of Christmas. I could already imagine the fake laughter, the overcooked optimism and someone, probably my mom, saying something like, "Isn't it nice having everyone together?" As if everyone included me. As if I hadn't spent the last decade as the human equivalent of a blurry background character in every family memory. When I finally wandered into the kitchen, my mother was plating scrambled eggs like she was auditioning for a brunch spread in a lifestyle magazine. My dad sat at the table scrolling through his phone. My sister was barefoot, sipping almond milk from a wine glass. "Good morning," my mom said, not looking up. "Hope you slept okay in the guest room." "The mattress has a personality," I said, pouring myself some coffee. She laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. We made it through breakfast the way we always did, performing. There was no catching up. No one asked about my job or how I was doing, or whether I was still living in that small apartment with the creaky stairs, which for the record I wasn't. My sister talked about her upcoming trip, Barcelona this time, and how she was so lucky to have parents who supported her dreams. I didn't say anything. Just nodded along like a seat filler at an award show. They still hadn't noticed the envelope sitting in my coat pocket that would come later. Instead, I let my thoughts drift backward to everything that led up to this moment. When I graduated high school, I got a scholarship. Not a full ride, but enough to make it possible if I picked up part-time work. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out, asking if they could help with the rest, just a little. My mom gave me this look like I'd asked to borrow her wedding ring to pawn. Dad said something about tough timing, and we're still catching up from the bathroom remodel. The same remodel that, fun fact, included heated floors and a bathtub with Bluetooth. 2 months later, my sister got a new car for her 18th birthday. White leather seats, custom stereo, a bow on top. She cried when they handed her the keys, told them they were the best parents in the world. I stood next to the recycling bin holding a $20 bill tucked inside a graduation card that said "You're going places." And you know what? I still left for college. Took 3 jobs. Slept 4 hours a night. Ate too much instant ramen. Graduated with honors. Moved to a new city. Started over. I didn't ask them for anything after that. And they didn't offer. When I was laid off 2 years ago, I didn't call. When I was sick and couldn't afford the medication my doctor prescribed, I didn't ask. When my apartment flooded and I lost most of my furniture, I bought a used mattress off Craigslist and made do. Meanwhile, my sister posted Instagram stories from Santorini. Sponsored, obviously. I used to wonder if maybe it was me. Maybe I was just harder to love, more reserved, less shiny. Maybe I should have joined a sorority, smiled more, worn more beige. Maybe if I'd played piano instead of working shifts at a diner, they would have noticed me. Maybe if I hadn't made things so easy, always independent, always fine, they would have realized I needed help too. But then I remembered my 8th birthday. I had invited 6 kids over. Baked cupcakes myself. Mom forgot to pick up the pizza, so we ate cheese slices on saltines. My sister had a dance recital the next day, so the whole thing ended early. They told me, "We'll make it up to you next year." They never did. Or the time I won a state science competition. My school called home to tell them. They sent back a text, "Nice job." Smiley face, that was it. No dinner. No framed certificate. No mention of it ever again. My sister landed a minor role in a shampoo commercial and they threw her a party with balloons and a custom cake that said "Future Star." So no, it wasn't me. It was never me. The shift came earlier this year. I wasn't looking for it, not really. I had gone to a local records office to request something unrelated. Proof of address for a job application. Bureaucratic stuff. While I was there, something caught my eye. A document with my name on it, attached to a property address I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone with the same name. But curiosity did what it always does. It spiraled. I started looking deeper. Requests, searches, a few carefully worded emails. And the deeper I went, the more tangled it got. There were things I hadn't been told. Things that had been buried. And at the center of all of it, me. I didn't react right away. Didn't confront anyone. I just watched, observed. The same way I always had. Only now I wasn't helpless. I had facts, paper, proof. And the more I uncovered, the more a strange calm settled over me. Like I'd been underwater my whole life and didn't even realize it, until I finally came up for air. They hadn't just forgotten me. They had used me. My name. My rights. My silence. No. Now I had something that would make them listen. That morning after breakfast, I went upstairs and changed. Took my time. Let them do their thing. Gather around the tree. Pass around the gifts. Bask in their curated holiday glow. When I came down they were already halfway through unwrapping. My sister was opening something expensive and pretending to be surprised. My mom had that misty-eyed look she reserves for moments she can later post about. My dad turned to me. "You get any sleep?" I smiled. "Enough." He nodded and went back to watching my sister marvel over her designer tote. I sat down quietly, reached into my coat pocket, placed the envelope on the table beside the coffee mugs and crumpled wrapping paper. No one noticed. Not yet. But they would. They always notice eventually. Just too late. They noticed the envelope about 10 minutes later. Or rather, my mom noticed it, because God forbid anything sit on her reclaimed wood table without coaster ceremony or purpose. She picked it up like it might be a bill or a wedding invitation that had been misdelivered. "What's this?" she asked, more to the room than to me. I didn't look up right away, just took another sip of coffee and said, "That's from me." My dad glanced over from where he was poking at the last bits of wrapping paper, probably hoping something had fallen under the tree. "You didn't have to get us anything," he said, smiling like I'd given them a mug with a cheesy quote on it. "I know," I said. "I wanted to." That got their attention. Mom sat back down, turning the envelope in her hands. "Should we open it now?" I shrugged. "But I'd rather you didn't." So obviously they opened it. Dad leaned over her shoulder as she broke the seal. And for a few seconds, it was just the sound of paper sliding free, the quiet crinkle of shifting pages. I watched my sister fold the handles of her new designer tote just so, like it was a newborn she just named after a French city. Then the silence changed. It thickened. I didn't even have to look up. I could feel it. Something between realization and nausea. Like the exact moment you realize the milk in your coffee is sour, right after you've swallowed. My dad let out a breath through his nose. My mom's eyes were scanning faster now, flipping to the second page, the third like she could outrun what she was reading. My sister looked over. "What is it?" They didn't answer. She tried again a little louder. "What's going on?" Still nothing. That was my cue. "I figured it was time you knew," I said, standing up slowly. "Merry Christmas." "What is this?" my mom finally asked. Her voice was quiet, flat. Not angry. Not confused. "Just look like that," I said, "is a copy of Grandpa's will." She blinked. "I've seen his will. We handled the estate." "No," I said. "You handled what you told me was the estate. You never showed me the full will. Just said he left a few keepsakes and some cash that went toward funeral expenses." He stared at me, blinking too much. "That version didn't mention the rental property in Old Briar," I continued. "Probably because you were already collecting rent from it by then." My dad dropped the papers on the table like they'd burned him. "Where did you get this?" "Oh, I said. "Public records, title searches, tax filings, archived emails, a couple phone calls, a very patient lawyer." My sister finally stood up. "Wait, what rental property?" "The one by the park." I turned to her. "The one you used for that photo shoot last year?" "Yeah, that one." Her mouth opened but nothing came out. My mom finally found her voice again. "Sweetheart, this isn't what it looks like." I smiled. "That's funny because it looks like you used my name, my inheritance, and my legal rights to fund your lifestyle while telling me there was nothing left for me." "It wasn't like that," she said too quickly. "It was complicated." "It wasn't," I replied. "The will is extremely clear. The house was left to me, sole beneficiary, full title transferred, which means all that rent you've been collecting, technically stolen. And the renovations, unauthorized." My dad rubbed his temples like this conversation was giving him a migraine. "I hoped it was. I knew you wouldn't understand," he muttered. "You're always so dramatic." That got a laugh out of me. "Right? I'm dramatic. You edited me out of a family portrait and committed inheritance fraud. But sure, let's blame my tone." My sister looked genuinely confused now, like someone had pulled the rug out from under her and she still hadn't hit the floor. "But that house paid for my tuition." "I know," I said. "And the car. And the Mexico trip. And probably a few handbags along the way." "That's not fair," she snapped. "You didn't need it. You were always the independent one. You never asked for help." "Because I was told there was nothing to ask for," I said. "You made sure of that." My mom's voice shifted into soft, careful territory, the same tone she used when trying to return something at a boutique without a receipt. "We didn't think you'd want the responsibility. You were busy. You were always so far away." "I was far away," I said, "because you made it very clear I wasn't welcome here." Dad pushed back his chair. "You need to calm down." "And you," I said, turning to him, "need a lawyer." He froze. "I'm not suing," I added, "yet, but I've officially reclaimed ownership of the property. The tenants have been notified. Rent payments will now go to me. Your access to the house is revoked." My mom looked like she might cry, but that house was our income. We depended on that. I tilted my head. Then maybe you shouldn't have stolen it. We're family, she whispered. No, I said. You're people I used to be related to. There's a difference. My sister crossed her arms. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said. Just not beneath you anymore. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. Dense. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring a little. No one moved. No one breathed. My dad stared at the envelope like it might explode. My mom's face had gone slack. My sister looked like she was waiting for someone to pinch her awake. I picked up my coat. Wait, Mom said, standing. Can't we at least talk about this? You just did, I said. For years. Every time you made a decision without me. Every time you left me out. Every time you told me I'd understand someday. Dad's jaw was tight. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I paused at the door, turned to look at them one last time. I think that's the first thing we've agreed on. And then I left. The air outside was sharp, cold but clean. It hit my lungs like a reminder that I was still here, still standing, still real. I slid behind the wheel of my car, let the engine to life and drove. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And sometimes the loudest scream is walking away. 3 weeks passed before the first message came through. It was from my mom. Short, polite, polished like she'd rewritten it 5 times and still wasn't sure it would land. Hi, sweetheart. We've been talking and we think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we chat sometime this week? Hope you're well. Love you. No punctuation at the end. Just love you, hanging there awkwardly like a coat on the wrong hook. I didn't respond. 2 days later, another one. Please don't let this one thing ruin everything. Your sister is very upset. Dad's trying to stay calm, but you know how he gets when he feels blindsided. Yes. When he feels blindsided. Not when he commits fraud. Not when he lies to his daughter for years. No. Feels blindsided. Poor guy. So I said nothing. Then came a voicemail from my dad. I didn't listen to it. I just stared at the notification and deleted it. The last time he called me kiddo, it was when I offered to help him set up his retirement account and he said, let's leave the money stuff to people who understand it, right? Like him. Then came the email from my sister. You really think this makes you the winner? Fine. Take the house. But don't come crying back when you realize money doesn't buy family. Followed by another message a day later. Mom and Dad are really stressed. They're talking about selling the condo. That's what he wanted, congrats. That one I read twice. Not because I felt bad, but because I wanted to make sure I understood just how much the loss of my property was unraveling the family finances. Turns out the house had been the backbone of everything. Rent from 3 units, covered their mortgage, their vacations, a chunk of my sister's education, and apparently even some cosmetic work my mom swore was just really good skincare. When I took it back, the whole machine sputtered, and I hadn't even started asking for back rent. Not yet. By spring I started hearing whispers through mutual acquaintances. A neighbor mentioned my parents were trying to refinance their condo. Another said my dad had taken up consulting, which I knew meant cold calling old clients and hoping one of them still owed him a favor. My mom picked up weekend shifts at a boutique downtown, the kind of place where she used to shop. Now she rang up yoga pants for influencers and probably told herself it was temporary. My sister? Back living at home. The apartment in the city was too expensive. The clients dried up. Her art collective had disbanded or imploded. It was hard to tell which, and frankly I didn't care. The GoFundMe she launched for a new creative chapter raised a grand total of $83. 2 of those dollars were from my ex-boyfriend. I don't know why that detail made me laugh, but it did. Meanwhile I fixed up the house. My house. It was dusty at first. A little unloved, but solid. I hired a contractor to touch up the paint, replace the old windows. I cleared out the furniture my parents had stored there and donated most of it. Kept 1 chair. A navy blue armchair that I vaguely remembered from my childhood. The only piece that didn't feel like it came with strings attached. The tenants were kind. One of them left me a thank you note after I lowered their rent by $50. Said I was the first landlord who treated them like a human being. That meant more to me than any of my parents' recycled apologies ever could. It's funny the things you start to notice when the noise dies down. The silence, once heavy and personal, becomes peaceful. Like space you finally get to stretch into. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I stopped bracing for the next guilt trip. I started sleeping through the night. And then one afternoon I found a letter in my mailbox. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. My mom's handwriting on the front. I held it for a minute before opening it. Not because I thought it might be sincere, but because I wanted to mark the moment. The envelope smelled like her perfume. Inside, 2 pages. Neatly written. Full of we didn't know, and it wasn't intentional. And we only wanted what was best for everyone. My favorite part was, you've always been so strong we didn't realize you needed anything from us. That's what people say when they benefit from your silence and need an excuse for never asking why you stopped talking. She closed with, "We hope someday you'll come home. Maybe we can start over. Maybe we can be a family again." No mention of restitution. No mention of the stolen income or the lies, or the fact that I'd been cropped out of the literal family photo like a bad ex. I put the letter in a drawer. Didn't throw it out. Didn't answer either. That was the last time she reached out directly. 3 years later I bumped into my old neighbor at a bookstore. She asked if I was still managing that property, and I smiled. Said yes. She hesitated for a beat before saying, "I hear your parents had a rough time of it." I said nothing. She nodded. "Well, you look happy. That's good." And I am. I still live in the house now. Not because I need to. Not out of spite, but because it's peaceful. It's mine. I wake up to birds and sunlight instead of footsteps outside my bedroom door and passive-aggressive remarks about how I never call anymore. I rebuilt the backyard garden. Repainted the front steps. The windowsills are full of plants that thrive on sunlight and low expectations. There's a photo on my mantle now. Me standing in front of the house holding the keys. No one else in the shot. Just me. It's my favorite photo, because no one had to crop anyone out. I still hear from them occasionally. A forwarded email. A message through a cousin. Once, a Christmas card that just said, "Thinking of you. Hope you're well." No return address. I didn't reply. And the funny thing is, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for closure or justice or even an apology. I already have what they never gave me. My name on something permanent, my place in the world, my own story. I used to believe that if I just tried hard enough, just earned it, maybe one day they'd love me the way they loved her. But love the kind that matters isn't something you have to earn, something you give freely, and what they gave me was conditional. What I gave myself was everything else. So, no, I don't miss them. I don't replay the conversations. I don't imagine dramatic reunions. I don't dream about some perfect apology that sets everything right. As I already said it right, the life I have now didn't come with a bow or a blessing. Came from doing the hard thing, from walking away. And that, as it turns out, was the only gift I ever needed.